My name is Adam Minter, and I'm the author of Junkyard Planet, Travels in the Billion-Dollar Trash Drain. Guangdong province is in the south of China, and it's the manufacturing capital of the country. It's been referred to as the workshop of the world. And if you're the workshop of the world, you need raw materials, and so China is also the scrapyard to the world. And Guangdong is the capital of the scrapyard of the world. And if you go around Guangdong, there's lots of small towns that specialize in recycling different kinds of objects. Shijiao, which is a small village actually outside of Qingyuan, is about 150 miles north of Guangzhou, and it has become, over the years, a capital for the recycling of low-quality wire. And amongst the low-quality wire that they recycle there are Christmas tree lights. These are not telecommunication cables. They're usually very cheap. The insulation on them is quite cheap. And in years past, prior to about 2009, the way that stuff used to be recycled was you would get a can of gas, pour the gas onto the wire, get a match, set it on fire, and when it all cooled off in the morning, you would pull the plastic that remains and the ashes remains away from the copper, and then you had some, very nice burnt copper. But around 2009, a few things happened that changed how Shijiao recycles wire, including Christmas tree lights. One was the Chinese government was starting to crack down on air pollution, and burning wire obviously was one of the things that they wanted to get rid of. The second thing that happened was the price of oil was spiking, and suddenly the insulation on those Christmas tree lights was worth a lot of money. So when I turned up in Shijiao around 2011, they had started developing really interesting recycling systems that solved both of these problems. And the factory that I went to was introduced to me as one of the leading recyclers of this material. It recycled at the time around 2 million pounds of American Christmas tree lights per year, and it was one of 9 or 10 such factories in Shijiao. And as I was told, Shijiao probably recycled at the time about 20 million pounds of American Christmas tree lights, imported American Christmas tree lights every year. So the system that they devised is a mechanical system that's really, the principle is no different than how you pan for gold, which is if you take a pan and you get sand and gold pieces in it, you take water and the gold is heavier than most of the sand, so it adheres to one end of the pan and the sand sort of rolls right off. The way it works in Shijiao is you take the Christmas tree lights and of course you need to reduce them in size, so they put them into these shredders. And these shredders have blades that have been calibrated to cut the lights very small. So what you end up with after they go through there is a mush, basically, of plastic, rubber, copper, glass, and whatever else goes into the Christmas tree lights. And it's mixed with water for two reasons. One, it gets very hot in those shredders. So if you didn't have some water cooling it off, those things would explode. And second, you want something a little bit gooey for the workers to actually shovel so they can put on what are these very large water tables. And if you look at the video I took of the factory, you'll notice water shooting across the tables. It's not completely clear, but the tables are actually inclined upward. And the reason for that is it makes it easier for the separation to occur. So the water shoots up and the lightweight materials, the glass, the plastic, the rubber, sort of shoots off the side of the table. And the copper, which is heavier than anything else on the table, goes off the back end. And you get a very, very nice separation, that can then be sold and is sold to other factories. In the case of Raymond's factory, they were selling the copper to other Christmas tree lights manufacturers, so it's a perfect example of the circular economy. The rubber at the time and the plastic was being sold to slipper sole manufacturers. So it's a terrific example, a low-tech example of how you can create a circular economy that doesn't require massive investments in technology. The other thing to note about the system is that yes, it does use water, but that water, even though it's being lifted out of a nearby creek, it's not being discharged. Instead, it's circulating through the system until it evaporates, and then they take more water in. So you are eliminating another possible source of pollution. So the next time you buy a strand of Christmas tree lights, think that maybe the one you just bought was last year's Christmas tree lights that you dropped off at a Salvation Army, a Goodwill, or put in a recycling bin at your curb. That the world of recycling and products is far more complex and more circular than many of us ever imagined, and is only becoming better as time goes on.